this series justifies him spending quite so much money on vinyl.
Hello everybody and welcome back to What Records Does Sam Have? Where today Sam is me by the way, Sam's going to go through his Mastodon record collection. Yes, if you're not aware of Mastodon, they're the best new metal band going, and I don't mean new metal like Korn or Slipknot or any of that shit. I mean new as in a newish heavy metal band who make music. And not only are they making the best sort of new music out there to listen to if you like sort of heavy rock, I think they're going to be the Metallica, you know, in 10 to 15 years. They also do some of the best vinyl issues of music you're going to get from new bands. Their vinyl are just gorgeous. As far as I know, I've got almost every vinyl record. I'm only missing the live album and I think the newest EP they've done. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you my lovely Mastodon vinyl collection, not in any specific order. I've basically shuffled them up so that there's something a bit different to say about each one. They're all from different eras, and we get a good even spread of things. So let's start off. Now, this first album is one that I enjoyed immensely. This was probably the first stuff I heard by Mastodon. I actually saw this on MTV2 in the middle of the night, and straight away I went like, oh yeah, that's a band I've got to get into. The guitarist was wearing a fez, and I was like, any metal band where the guitarist wears a fez is all right by me. The first album I'd like to talk about today is this beauty, Leviathan. Now, I think some album artworks and album names just sum up the band perfectly, don't they? Mastodon, that's a big monster. Leviathan, that's a big monster. There's a giant big monster on the front album cover. Like, what more do you want? This is a band who do songs about big monsters. This is a concept album about that thing with the whales, isn't it? The whale and the sailor's mad at the whale, and then he's going to kill the whale. Moby Dick, that's what it's called. This is a concept album about Moby Dick, and the opening track of this, Blood and Thunder, is one of the heavy metal legends. This is one of the best songs I've ever heard, and it was the first song I heard by Mastodon, and it just blew my head off. I was just like, what is this? And I was so excited that I ran out and bought this on CD, I think, like right after that. I just love it. Look at it. Oh my God, the whale on the front. Look at the inside of this album cover. It's all gold and red and blue, and you got the whale there, and you got some spears because Ahab is hunting him, and it's blue for the sea and red for Ahab's anger. And you know, I'm amazed no one ever thought to do a heavy metal album about this before. This album's a very good one because it's super direct, it's super heavy, super damn noisy. The opening tracks on both sides, I've got to say, are probably my favourite. Blood and Thunder and I Am Ahab. They're amazing. Also, the last track, Joseph Merrick, is about the Elephant Man. He's nothing to do with Moby Dick, but there's a song about him on there. Now, I'd like to show you the best thing about these lovely vinyl issues that Mastodon do, is that they do them on such beautiful, weighty. Oh, that's a weighty record, so you know that's going to sound good. But then you pull it out of its little case and you have a look at it. Look at that bad boy. Gold and blue and red. You know, the colour of blood, thunder, gold and elephant men. It's just a beautiful looking record, as well as being a beautiful sounding record. And this is exactly why I think their vinyl issues are amongst the best. Because, you know, a lot of bands, they put the vinyl out now because nerds like myself are going to buy them, and they think, oh, we've got to do a vinyl, lads, if we're doing an album. Also, it's the only merch left they can still sell. But I think Mastodon sit down and they say, look lads, we're doing a vinyl, and if we're going to do a vinyl, let's make it the best damn looking vinyl on the market. And that's exactly what they've done here. I give Leviathan, and especially its opening track, Blood and Thunder, I give this 8 harpoons out of a possible 10 fishing boats. So definitely one to listen to. Very, very good. Next up on the list, we've got quite an odd one. This is The Call of the Mastodon. Now, what's very interesting about this is not technically an album in itself. This is actually the first 2 EPs that Mastodon made before they were kind of a proper signed band. This is, I'm not going to lie, this is very, very heavy. I mean, even for Mastodon, this is heavy. This was at the height of their thrashy, doomy, they're young. They're full of piss and vinegar, they are excitable, and they are ready to go. Once again, this is an EP collection. They could have done quite a basic album cover, but they've stuck with this beautiful gold theme, which they use for all of the albums. It's just a really great looking little album with some really, really, really heavy songs on. I've got to be honest, this does not get as much play as some of the other stuff, but when you listen to this, you can totally understand why this band was signed up so quickly and everyone went, yes, Mastodon are the next Metallica, Mastodon are the next Slayer. Get them up there right at the front. This is another one. The colour scheme on this, oh, it's a beaut. Feel the weight. Look at that, blue and gold. Oh, what a beaut. Just a gorgeous vinyl record full of some of the heaviest heavy metal music you're ever likely to hear. Funny story about Mastodon, when I first heard them, I was a drummer, I've always been a drummer, but when I first heard them was in the age of like throwing scorn on anything that was proggy. Nobody liked stuff that was proggy, and I love Dream Theater, but everyone would always say to me, oh, Dream Theater's good, isn't it? But it's very busy, the drums are very unnecessarily busy. When I first heard Mastodon, I was saying to my friends, oh, I like Mastodon, but I think the drums are a bit busy. And I didn't really mean it, I just said it because it was the cool thing to say. And now I look back on that and I think I was a twat, because guess what? The drumming in Mastodon is the tits. I give this album, Call of the Mastodon, 7 new noisy heavy metal men out of a possible 10. Give it a little listen. Next up, we've got a later offering. This is a beautiful album, this one. This is called The Hunter. Now, this is a badass album cover, because this was, I think, the first one to move away from the beautiful gold theme that they kept throughout those first couple of albums. But they made a wood carving. This is not a painting or a digital creation. This is actually a physical wood carving that they then photographed and sort of edited for the album cover. And they've really gone with this beautiful earthy feel for this earthy music. This is a very interesting album, because this moved away ever so slightly from their longer progressive sort of thematic thing they've been sitting through a lot, and they just went, let's just write a set of really cool, almost Queens of the Stone Age style hard rock hits. And this is basically what this is. Black Tongue, Curl of the Bell, both amazing. There's a song on this called Octopus Has No Friends, and I love Octopus Has No Friends, because I can imagine him, he's there under the sea, he's like, oi, do you want to be mates with me? And everyone's like, no thanks, pal. Dry Bone Valley, it's all good names. It's got a sad theme as well, because one of the members' brothers died, and it's dedicated to him. It's a beautiful album. I mean, look at this. It's not a gatefold, this one, so it kind of lacks on that front. But it does have these beautiful inlays on the back, which are all made from that one wooden carving and then sort of recast. Just on a plain black vinyl, this one, I'm afraid, not quite as exciting. But I've got to say, if you like slightly more accessible hard rock Mastodon, actually doing some songs that you could play on the hard rock radio maybe, this is the album to do. Curl of the Bell is one of my favourites of their sort of singles, if this band were to ever have singles, which of course if you're like a good heavy metal band you don't really have singles, but that's the closest they ever came to a single that I think is really catchy and good. It's just an all-round really good album. I give this one a solid 7 woodworking tools out of a possible freaky deer head thing. So give that one a listen, especially Curl of the Bell, that one's good. This next album is actually their first official released album. This is called Remission. I had to have a little look to remind myself I do know that this is called Remission. I'm going to say something that people are going to be very upset about. This is probably my least favourite of the studio outings. What? Yeah, I know. It's just, it is good. It's full of good playing. It's a beautiful record. Once again, gorgeous, gorgeous pressing this. Huge, heavy, thick vinyl. And it's a little bit plainer on the inside, but we've got a gatefold there. Double black vinyl on very heavy record. And this sounds really, really great. But I've got to say, for some reason, this just doesn't stick in my head like some of the other stuff does. It's got that thing where people are new and they're fresh and they go, let's throw as many different ideas at a song as we can. Idea, idea, idea. And then at the end you get a song that's full of good ideas but feels a wee bit directionless. And that's what I'm going to say about Remission. There is only one song on this album that actually has stayed in constant rotation for the band, which is March of the Fire Ants. That's the only one that they still play live, to my knowledge. I mean, there also is another song about Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, on this, because they really had like a thing. They were like, each album for the first 2, we're going to finish with a song about the Elephant Man, which is a bold choice to use the same theme. It's very, very, very heavy, this, very, very direct. Absolutely full of drum fills that just go on about 3 bars longer than they should, that are awesome. Like, it is really well played. I just don't think it's got the polish of some of the later albums. But out of the gate, this was a good taster as to what the band could potentially become. And I would argue, from the second album onwards, they really hit their stride as Mastodon. Remission, I give this album 6 horses on fire out of a possible 10 horses that might not be on fire. So listen to this one if you're completist and you want to hear all the noisiest, fastest stuff. That's probably on this or that demo one I was talking about. Next up, we've got their latest album. This was the newest one. I believe this only came out 2018, I want to say. I can't see the date on the back, so I'm going to take a guess at 2018. It was very recently anyway. I think this was a bit of a return to form. This, oh, look at that. Once again, beautiful album. Emperor of Sand. Now you can see here they've gone for a very trad looking thrash metal cover. We've got like a skeleton emperor man and he's got an orb like he's casting a spell and there's fire. And they've obviously gone, oh, this is going to be old school, thrashy, hard rock fun. And that's exactly what this is. This is an album made by seasoned musicians who know how to make a good album. Now, like some of the other stuff, they have done a couple of things that you could definitely consider singles on this. There's a song on this called Show Yourself, which is a very chilled out song for them. I mean, it could almost be a Foo Fighters song. And I remember that being one of the early ones they released for the album, and people going, oh, Mastodon have lost their edge. They're doing a load of horrible pop music with nice choruses. And I think, do you know what? Shut up. It's all right to write heavy metal, and it's also all right to occasionally write a catchy song that, as I said, can get played on rock radio and maybe earn you a little bit of money. And when you do the big festivals, then you got one to play for all the people. Now, once again, like, cool metal artwork. Look at this on the inside. We've got 2 crystal men being accosted by a load of Skeletors. All of these Skeletor men are going, yeah, we're going to get you, crystal men. And the crystal men are like, no, you're bloody not. We're going to cast magic on you. So, bearing in mind this is an album made by a load of older men, it's got the most immature and kind of fun old school metal album cover. And look, there's a collapsed environment on the back. The music on this is solid all the way through. As I said, much more mature. The singing gets better. The composition gets better. We hear a few more choruses. Probably not my favourite album they've ever done, but definitely a very, very, very good album. I'm going to give this album 7.5 Mystic Scepters out of a possible 10 Mystic Scepters. Yeah, Emperor of Sand, give it a listen, a must have. This one here, this next one, I do very much like this album. It was produced by the same producer who did one of my all-time favourite Coheed and Cambria albums, Nick Resculinis. I never know how to pronounce his last name, but he did, I think, 2 albums with Coheed and Cambria, and especially No World for Tomorrow, the lyrics of which I have tattooed on my arm. So this producer is someone who's made a lot of stuff that I really like. This is the wonderful Once More Around the Sun. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but they definitely went for a much more psychedelic feel for this one. And what's quite kind of interesting about this particular album is the album cover. I love it when the album cover matches the music, and this album cover really matches the music. This has a much more psychedelic but heavy feel. This is like, what if the Grateful Dead and Megadeth had a baby? You get Mastodon's Once More Around the Sun. Now, I really like a lot of the songs on this, and weirdly, with the later albums, it's often the singles that I enjoy the most. So Once More Around the Sun I really like. High Road is an absolute tune. Once again, High Road is one that you could get on the old rock radio and you could do exceptionally well. Tread Lightly, the opening track, absolutely fantastic. Towards the end of this album, I do lose interest a bit. I'm sorry, Mastodon. I love you and your crazy, creepy monster man. But towards the end of this, it does get a bit floaty. Like live, these tracks always go down well because they've got the best sort of psychedelic mentalness to go with them on the big video screens. I mean, look at that. He's shooting a laser beam out of his eye of balls. And nobody can beat a laser beam of balls. It's so cool. And it's a double album because it's a massive hunk of work. Once again, beautifully printed by Reprise on really big, thick vinyl. So this, when you play this, all you hear those bottom ends, all you hear those top ends, all the singing's fantastic. Bit more accessible, this one, I'd say. Even though it's got a wacky album cover and is psychedelic, it's got 2 of their most accessible songs on it, I'd say. The first vinyl of this A little bit better than the second half, probably. Once again, there's probably Mastodon fans out there. They're going to crucify me for that. But I'm going to give the wonderful Once More Round the Sun, I'm going to give this another 7.5 psychedelic eye blasts out of a possible 10 decapitating eye blast balls. It's a good album, because it's Mastodon. They always make good albums. I've saved the best two for last, haven't I? These two are my favourite Mastodon albums by quite a long way, both in artwork, music, sounds on the albums, experimental approaches to songs. There's just so much going on these two albums that, you know, I would go as far as to say, if you're only going to buy two metal albums from the past 20 years, they should probably both be Mastodon albums, and they should be these two that I'm going to show you next. This one here, oh my god, what an absolute masterpiece this is. This is Blood Mountain. Now, as far as I know, this is the third album, because this is after Leviathan. And this really, for me, is where this band went, this is what we do, this is what we sound like, and this is what we're going to make. And they made this absolute stonker of an album. And you can see straight away, they've kind of got a very strong theme. So once again, when the album cover matches the music, oh, I love it. And these, look at this, there's a psychedelic, creepy, like, wolf-deer combo with his heart that's a flower, and all this cool, like, paisley-looking sort of psychedelia coming out the back. But it's not just the album cover that does it for me with this. It's the absolute quality songs that are on this album. I mean, The Wolf is Loose, that's the opening track. The drum intros on these are amazing. Like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, just so damn good, so noisy, so direct. The Wolf is Loose, Crystal Skull, Sleeping Giant. Three amazing, heavy-hitting, cool metal songs to start off. And then opening the second half, you've got a wonderful song called Colony of Birchmen, which I also really like. You've got so much experimentation with different tones, different sounds, different tempos. The drummer is playing his absolute heart out on this, you know. I always say it's very Slayer-esque how he does fills, but even more fills than Slayer, if you can imagine that. He's just a beast. And when I saw him live, they played the whole set and he wasn't even sweaty. I was like, how are you doing that? You must be a magic man. Yeah, I just can't say quite enough how much I love this album. I'm going to give this album 9 hybrid forest creatures out of a possible 10 hybrid psychedelic forest creatures. Blood Mountain, give it a listen. It's going to change your life. As I often do, I've saved the best till last. Now, this album means an awful lot to me for so many different reasons, but I really think that Mastodon, sadly, will probably never, ever do a better album than this. And I'd go as far as to say this is one of the greatest metal albums ever made, ever produced. You are never going to get a better album than this. You're never going to get another album that perfectly blends psychedelia, heavy metal, mental drumming, and just all-out awesomeness, as well as like cool concept as this. This is Mastodon's Crack the Sky. Now this is the magnum opus. If you only have to pick one Mastodon album to listen to, it's this bad boy. This, you just do not get better than this. This is a mad concept album about a paraplegic man who's dying and in his last moments travels back physically through time to rejoin with his past life, who was Rasputin. Yeah, you know, the guy who was like heir to the Russian throne or whatever and caused the downfall of the Russian kings. So it's got a really complex psychedelic kind of concept to it, which is just mind-blowing. And the concept is great. The album art is just a killer. You see this on the shelf and you say, yes, please, that is an album I want to get. It looks a bit like a Magic the Gathering card in the middle, and we've got two Rasputins shouting at each other. Hey, this is the best album I've ever heard. Do you know what, mate? You're probably right. It is the best album I've ever heard. Once again, the tracks on this, just unbelievable. You've got Oblivion opening it up, which is just, man, like you're never going to hear a better song than that. The Tsar is on this. Just Crack the Sky is such a tune as well. But every single song on this, I just love. And the weird thing about this album is, this is one of those albums where if it's time to listen to Crack the Sky, guess what? It's time to listen to Crack the Sky. I don't even really think of this as being individual tracks. If I put this on, this is for listening to. Interesting side note, I did once have a girlfriend I was dating and I didn't know whether to dump her or not. So I put my entire music library on shuffle to see if I should stay with her or if I should break up. And the first lyric that appeared was this. And that told me everything I needed to know. So we broke up. Yeah, so thanks Mastodon. I give this album 10 psychedelic mind-travelling paraplegics out of a possible 10 Rasputins screaming at each other over a golden bear. Everyone should own this album. You should buy it right now, get it on the big thick lovely reprise vinyl and play it as loud as you can so that all your neighbours hear it. Usually you play music at 3 in the morning, yeah? Your neighbours hear it, they go, oh shut up, what's that? I'm calling the police. But if you're playing this one at 3 o'clock in the morning and the neighbours hear it, they're going to say, hey, what's that? I'm glad that's woken me up because that is the best heavy metal album I have ever heard. Now I'm really close. What's that about? Anyway, just one extra little bonus thing. It's not a record, but I did buy a little Doom guy. Look at that. Isn't that cool? To go with all my toys because, you know, it's quite sad living alone in lockdown. So I bought a little Doom guy. Anyway, stay tuned because next week I'm going to do a little bit more of an old-fashioned thing. Probably some Jethro Tull, you know, some more classics. So stay tuned. Do like and subscribe. If you disagree with anything I've said, type it underneath. That's what this is about. I'll see you again next time.